Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the railway. Today I'm looking at a diesel loco from America. It's been quite a long time since I last reviewed an American diesel, but recently I spotted quite an interesting one, so I decided to pick it up and take a look. So it's a locomotive produced by Atlas, and I think I've only ever reviewed one Atlas locomotive before, and from memory I quite liked it. So fingers crossed today's loco is going to be decent as well. So today I am looking at this. It's one of Alco's Century locomotives, specifically the Century 420, which was intended specifically for the Long Island Railroad. Long Island being a pretty large, well, long. It is a long island. I looked it up on the maps. It is quite long. You can see how it got its name, which is in New York, and it got its own railroad. And the C420s back in the 1960s were designed specifically for it. Anyway, this is part of the Atlas Silver series, which means it's DCC ready. And as far as I can tell, the full price for a C420 DCC ready is about $184.95 or $139.99 at the retailers. There's also a gold version available too, which I believe has DCC sound, and the price for these is $219.99. For mine though, I paid $119.99 on special from Train World, which works out at about £92. Now for any relatively decent, hopefully, locomotive in this day and age, £92 seems very fair indeed. So looking forward to this one, and of course shout out for Train World. They've been pretty good for all of my USA model railroading needs. But anyway, the Atlas C420, what is this like? Let's find out. So first of all, I seem to remember the last Atlas loco I looked at weighed a ton, and this box seems fairly heavy as well, so hopefully this is going to be a decently heavy loco. Anyway, I was interested in this loco because I've actually been to Long Island. Now, admittedly, I didn't go on any trains there. I went on a bus, and it was about 20 years ago, so I can't remember it very well. And I didn't go in the 1960s, so I didn't see one of these locos, so frankly my connection to this is tenuous at best, but there is a slight connection. Anyway, let me show you the end of the box. So the one I've gone for is item number 1002959. It is the Long Island C420 PH2B high nose locomotive, road number 222. Now, yeah, this does have the high nose, which means this little bonnet in front of the cab is high as opposed to low. I have to say, I'm a little bit sad that I've got a high nose one, because looking at these locos with the low nose, I think they look a lot nicer. Yeah, I think, frankly, no locomotive is ugly, but I think the high nose is uglier than the low nose, but it's fine. It is what it is. Anyway, let me show you on the end of the box, because there's some high praise here for this locomotive from the people that made it and want you to buy it with money. So take this with a pinch of salt, but what is an Atlas Master locomotive silver? The enclosed Atlas Master locomotive represents the height of model railroad design and technology. Each unit features exquisite craftsmanship, smooth performance, and museum quality details. Presumably they mean a good museum, because I've been to some bad ones. For more information on all of Atlas high quality products, including track, rolling stock and accessories, please visit atlaser.com. Wow, just what is in this box? How could they afford to sell me a museum piece, effectively, for £92? The mind boggles. Anyway, then we've got, back to reality, some actual specs of the model here. So apparently it's got a 5-pole skew-wound armature motor with dual flywheels, pretty good. Realistic die-cast frame, I like that too. Blackened wheels, painted safety rails where appropriate. I wonder why they mentioned that. I mean, I've seen horns on this loco that are painted, but they're not a spec. DCC ready, includes the 8-pin plug, directional lighting, and AccuMate couplers. I assume that's just another sort of off-brand KD, but we'll see. Anyway, right, let's have a look at this loco then. Lifting the lid. Not had this out of the box yet. I believe this model came out in 2015, although there may have been other versions of this released before then. But yeah, it's around 10 years old as far as I can tell. Okay, lifting the loco. Whoa. Yeah, this is heavy. There is some weight to this, which is great. Okay, we've got some paperwork. So that's warranty registration. I'll put that to one side. Let's start with this then. We've got an exploded diagram, apparently for the chassis. Can't see any detailed parts here except for the bogies. So there's the mechanism as promised. Good quality looking motor with dual flywheels. Yeah, it looks like a decent mechanism, this actually, although we'll go over that in more detail later on. And then, yes, on the back we have cosmetics. So that looks like the diesel body, the cab area, all the separate parts. Yeah, it looks like a relatively complex Loco. Obviously, I'm trying to temper my expectations because I did pay £92 for this. So if this truly is a museum standard Loco, I'll be surprised, but pleasantly surprised. And then limited warranty information. Okay, so no instructions then per se, just a diagram, which is better than nothing, I suppose. And interesting packaging here. I note that this seems quite unconventional. The Loco seems to be screwed onto a cradle here, so let's see if I can pull this out. I can see we appear to have some accessories back there. Does this come off? Yeah. So we'll start with a look at the accessories then, which are in this little bag and taped on. All right, so anybody guess what these are for? I'm guessing these are the sunshades, which fit over the top of the cab maybe, because I can see we've got fitting holes. So that would be my guess. If you've got another guess, let me know. And then on a sprue, we have these two bits. What are those? I don't know. I suppose if I draw the exploded diagram, I might be able to figure out what those are for. But I'm not really that fussed. I think the vast majority of the detail seems to be fitted to the model. Right, let's lift this up. Yeah, it is screwed on. As you can see, we've got screws on the base. So I shall do that in a moment. Remove it, that is. For now, here is the Loco in quite a fetching livery. I do like this blue, actually, with the yellow accents, of course. And the Loco seems to be pretty heavy. It's tricky to get a good sense of the weight while it's still screwed to this cradle. But yeah, it doesn't seem light, I'll say that. And once it's off, I'll pop it on the scales and let you know what this weighs. Yeah, it looks all right. A little bit plasticky looking, I suppose. There isn't a dreadfully high quality finish on this. Certainly looks more plastic than metal. But, you know, that's a relatively minor thing. So yeah, looking pretty good. I'll get this off the cradle, I'll take a close look at the level of detail, and we'll come back and we'll talk about all of what this model has to offer. But for now, here's a bit of brief history on these locomotives in real life. Alco's Century 420 was a class of Bobo diesel electric locomotives built between 1963 and 1968. 131 of these were built in total with the intention of replacing the older RS32 diesels from a couple of years prior. The Century series was produced by Alco for around 10 years, during which time over 800 locomotives had been built. This series, though, the C420, would be the first of the series and would have one of the weaker engines as well. This one had the 2,000 horsepower 12-cylinder engine, and they were used mainly for switching work and sometimes even passenger work on the Long Island Railroad. Impressively, around 1 in 3 of the C420s still exist today, although sadly the rest have now been scrapped. So there it is, up close and personal for you, the Atlas C420, and this is a cracking model. Yeah, they've done a really good job of this, beautifully detailed, really well painted. Can't wait to jump in and show you all of this. Quite a bit more impressive than I expected it to be, given that I paid just £92 for this, or the equivalent of. Yeah, it's not as heavy as I thought though, because the packaging weighed an absolute ton. So the packaging itself, all the plastic and such, came in at nearly 250 grams, which is obviously a big chunk of the whole package. And so the Loco itself comes in at just 419 grams, which is fine. You know, it's not light or anything, but it's not extremely heavy as it felt like it was going to be holding the box. So that's about the same as a Bachmann Class 24 from over here in the UK, or just a tad more than a Bachmann GP7 from the States, just to give you some idea. Anyway, let's jump into this. Let's talk about the paint job. So yeah, for me the finish is a little bit flat and plasticky. I personally prefer my diesels to be a little bit shinier than this, although that is just personal preference. There's nothing wrong with this or anything. The way this has been painted though is really, really excellent. So we've got all of the handrails which have been separately painted and picked out. The box was right, it does have painted handrails. The yellow accenting though has been done beautifully. The sharpness of the printing along the running plate here is great. The sides of the cab, these have been painted yellow. This all looks fab. And of course we've got the end painting as well. I mean, all of the lines here are ruler straight. It really does look good. Then we've got each step which has been painted, as you can see. Plus we've got the massive M on the side of the cab here. A beautiful bit of printing there. A couple of different colours even on there on closer inspection. We've got the road number here printed onto the side. And then these lights at either end, these have the 222 on them as well. So a beautifully painted model, and in plenty of places there are sort of little details that have been picked out. Yeah, it's a very, very nicely painted model. Detail-wise, again, this is really, really good for what I paid. So the moulding, I would say, is stunning. Yes, a lot of this is just moulded detail, the grills and such, these are moulded, but the quality of the moulding is really high and crisp. Yeah, it looks great. Down on the bogies, yeah, we can see we've got decent moulding down here as well. Plus, we've even got some separately fitted parts. That looks pretty good. Fairly basic underframe detail, but I guess that's as per the real Loco because these tanks obviously cover up anything else that would be down there, so that's fair enough. Like I say, along the sides of the locomotive, there's not a whole lot of separate detail, although we've got these metal parts. Who knows what those are for? Please do let me know. And then over on the other side, we've got these air horns, which also are die-cast. These are metal. Not very well moulded, I have to say. They look kind of wobbly and nasty, don't they? One thing that is very plasticky though are the handrails. So yeah, these are particularly flimsy, which I suppose makes them a little bit harder to break. But yeah, some of them really are loosely fitted, not connected properly in places, not straightly fitted in others. Yeah, they do seem quite poor, and they're produced relatively poorly as well. There's visible flashing in several places. Not particularly high quality handrails. Same with the ones on the end. I mean, they're nicely moulded. There's a fair bit of detail in them, but yeah, they're wobbly to the point where they don't sit perfectly straight. The ends of the model though are super impressive. So we've got this sort of plough pre-fitted to the ends, and behind the plough we've got all sorts of pipework and the cupola and the different details. There's a real sense of depth there that looks fantastic. And here are your sort of KD style couplings, which are metal, I think, so that's good quality. And then above there we've got this crossing place for presumably crew to cross between vehicles. And these are hingeable, so you can put them into the raised position if you've not got anything coupled there. I mean, that is super cool. And then on the ends, we've got loads of detail. We've got these ladder rungs, which are all separately fitted. That looks really good. Handrails, which are separate as well. All topped off, of course, by top quality moulded detail, which looks great. Plus, we've got the working lighting, of course, which we will see working later on, hopefully. Up on the top of the model, again, just great moulded detail. Not really that many separate parts, although this little doohickey on the top of the cab, that is a separate part as well. Speaking of the cab, this has been done great as well. You've got the shades which you can fit if you want to, of course. Decent glazing on the windows, plus some separately fitted wipers. Cool that those are separately fitted on what is essentially quite a budget model. And then looking inside the cab, I can't see any detail inside here, unfortunately, but we are distracted from that by the fact that there are fully painted figures inside here, one on either side. That is super cool. I wish more manufacturers did that. You know, it makes no sense to sell a super high detailed model that looks realistic and then there's nobody driving it as it runs along. Yeah, that's a fundamental inaccuracy, isn't it? So to have crew fitted like this, that is really, really nice to see. So I really like this model. I think it's just the job. It's not massively complex or anything, but it does have a few features that I really like to see. Plus, with the exception of the handrails, I guess, the quality is really good as well. All of the parts are nicely separately fitted. The decoration is super precise. I think I came to a similar conclusion with the last Atlas Loco I looked at. For the money, this is all you could possibly ask for. It looks really good, but it didn't break the bank. That's a perfect combination for me. Anyway though, I've not seen this thing running yet. I've not investigated the mechanism besides a quick look at the diagrams. So how does this perform on the track and what is the mechanism like? Well, let's find out. So there she is, the Century down onto the track, and I have already filmed the initial performance test and running in, and I'll show you all of that in just a second. Next though, I took this thing apart to take a look at the inside, and that's what I'm going to go through now. So yeah, the mechanism overall I think is pretty decent. It's not that serviceable, but otherwise I think it's got everything that it needs to be in order to be considered a good quality Loco. There wasn't a proper instruction booklet with this though. We had the exploded diagrams, but that was all. So taking this apart to access it for servicing or for DCC fitting isn't that easy. I think some basic instructions, just a simple leaf or so just to explain what to do, would have been nice to see. Anyway, feel free to use this video as your instructions. I'm going to show you how to get to everything. So for the base keeper plates, there are no screws, unfortunately. They are clipped on and it's a bit fiddly to get them off. You have to be careful not to mess the wheels up as you do this. But as you can see, once the base was off, you can see we've got the basic gears here, just plastic gears. They'll do the job, of course. And if you need to lubricate these, you can do. The bogie sides then proceeded to sort of fall apart. And I thought, oh goodness, this isn't good. I thought, you know, I'm not going to be able to finish this review if the thing's collapsing. But it turns out if you put the base back on and squeeze the sides of the bogies back together, the base keeper somehow pokes through and holds the sides of the bogies in place, which is actually a pretty cool design because it means this way you can take the sides of the bogies off to access and clean the bearings, possibly add some fresh lubricant to them, which is really good. Sometimes that's really hard to do with a Loco that picks up through the bearings, which it does indeed. So the ends of the axle poke through those bearings, and those bearings support the weight of the Loco, of course, and they pick up power. They're reasonably thick. Sometimes these punched bearings can be a bit on the thin side, and I worry about how long they're going to last because of how thin they are. This one doesn't seem too bad. It's a fairly thick piece. Hopefully that will last the test of time. Right, body removal was a complete mystery. Again, no proper instructions with this Loco, so how to do this, I had no idea. So I removed the only two screws I could see. Those were the screws that held the couplings in place. And the screws weren't actually holding the body on, but you do have to remove the couplings before removing the body. Otherwise, they kind of lock the body on. So with the pickups out, yeah, very, very tricky. The body seems to be clipped on in many different places. So it's just a case of carefully easing all of the clips undone. And then at long last, eventually, I was able to remove the body. And here is the chassis. It's a pretty heavy chassis, this, with lots of metal on board. And interestingly, and I think this was a feature of the last Atlas Loco I looked at, there are two DCC sockets. So we've got an 8-pin socket and a 21-pin socket. So does that mean you've got a choice? Could you use either decoder? Very, very interesting. Although the 21-pin socket wasn't mentioned on any of the documentation, so maybe that's not wired up, I don't know. Obviously also remember to remove the 8-pin blanking plate if you do try to put in a 21-pin decoder. But anyway, yeah, fascinating. We've also got the motor, which apparently is a 5-pole skew wound motor, so that seems good quality, and the way this runs is brilliant as well. Plus the massive flywheels, 2 of them, absolutely crazy, and again, this makes a big difference to the performance. The chassis does have a speaker enclosure on board, as you can see. No pre-fitted speaker, but I suppose if you were to get one of the Gold Series models, this is where the speaker would be for the sound. And then the lighting is very simple but effective, I would say. We've just got a single LED at either end of the model for the directional lighting, and that is it. Gauging came in at between 14.4 and 14.5, which is pretty close to the standard, so no issues with that either. So apart from the odd issue with serviceability, it's quite a good design. I'm not a big fan of the sort of pick up through the axle style design, but I have to say I think this is the best I've seen it done. At least this way it's relatively serviceable and there's an easy way to get access to the pickups and the axles so that you can maintain them. That is something I appreciate. But anyway, enough about the mechanism. Let me jump back in time and show you how this Loco ran. Right, at long last, it's time to give this a spin, so let's not mess about. Forwards direction, Is this going to work? Here goes. Yes. Sounded a little bit flatulent. Sounds very flatulent. Yes, what a noise that is. Trying to find ways to describe that without being too offensive. But yeah, I'm sure as it runs in, it will get smoother and less farty. There we go, that's my attempt. The flywheel effect is insane. Watch this, I'll cut it off. Cut off. My word. That is awesome. Those flywheels must be huge. Or the mechanism's very free. I'm not sure which. Anyway, what's the speed like? 50%? Goodness me, what a noise. But yeah, it's beautifully smooth. Yeah, sensibly geared then. Obviously it's not been run in yet, but I will let this run in fully before I judge its performance. Let's run by at full power then, just to see what the full range is like. Here we go. Oh yes. It goes from flatulent to very powerful sounding. Not bad actually. Sounds healthier at the higher speeds. Right, but is there any power there? Let's see. God, it's like it's running on DCC. It's really hard to get it to stop where you want it because of that flywheel action. That does mean it's insanely smooth. I've never seen a Loco with that much flywheel action before. Anyway, let me put my finger somewhere here, see if there's any torque. Oh yeah. It doesn't really care. I didn't even hear or see it slowing down because of that. Alright, so massive flywheels, that sounds like quite a load for the motor. Can this crawl, or is it going to struggle too much? Let's see. Obviously, I'll test this again later on after running in, but for now, I can hear it buzzing. Turning up. Oh. Okay, yeah. So at the moment, it's a bit of a struggle at the low end. It's quite coggy. It's going slow, but it's not a smooth motion. So, yeah, massive flywheels. They seem to have sacrificed the slow speed a little bit for a smoother high speed, which is fair enough. And at this speed, it's certainly smooth. What about in reverse? Yeah, less so. Perhaps give it a bit more. This may improve as it runs in, though. That's very possible. Oops, I accidentally cut power to it. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. That speed's all right. And it does accelerate smoothly. So yeah, overall, seems pretty good. I'm impressed by the power of it. And the smoothness, of course. But by the sounds of it, it is quite desperately crying out to be running. So I think that's what we'll do. I'll set this to forwards to start with. And we'll get it going round the layout at 50% speed. So here we go. Running in. Alright, seems to be running slightly faster already, I would say. Curves. Oh yes, she doesn't care. Not a care in the world around those curves. So, really powerful, beautifully smooth, and decently heavy as well. So this ought to be a really good hauler. And that's useful because you can imagine a Loco like this potentially hauling quite a long train. Well, if it slows down to a crawl around every curve, that's a bit useless, isn't it? So the fact that there is so much torque here means that a Loco like this, maybe double or triple headed, could haul quite a lot of goods or quite a long passenger train without too much trouble. So yeah, I really like this. I think it looks great and it seems to be running pretty well. Room for improvement down at the slow end. Maybe it will improve though with running in. We shall see. Anyway, 30 minutes forwards, then 30 minutes backwards. Then we'll come back, I'll finish the review and we'll couple this up, I think, to some freight. Right, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Glide to a halt. Wow, so cool. Right, well, as you won't be surprised to hear, this was perfect. It went without a hitch. Running in does seem to have improved it as well. I mean, it's not the quietest in the world. There's a bit of a noise to it, but I wouldn't say it's such an unhealthy sound anymore. It just seems to be a powerful sound. And this Loco certainly is powerful, as we saw. So yeah, that's fine. The speed, I would say, has more or less remained about the same. I think to start with, it became a bit more lively, but ultimately I think it's similar, 50%. Here we go. Yeah, it's sensibly geared, good range of speeds, very good. I haven't mentioned the lighting in action yet, so here's what that looks like. So it's simple directional lighting. In the forwards direction, the LED comes on and it's a nice warm white temperature, which looks good. And then in reverse, no lighting at all. So yeah, nice simple lighting. Obviously, if you were to chip this with DCC, you'd have some control over that. Anyway, let's do another torque demo, just to show that this is very powerful. As you can see, turning its wheels. Doesn't really get any noisier when you do that, which is good. So yeah, pulling power, absolutely amazing. And the tractive effort was astonishing. It came in at 0.74 newtons, which should be about 42 coaches on straight and level track. That makes this one of the more powerful diesels I've got of this sort of size anyway. Right, so the one thing that wasn't so good before was the crawl. So let's back this up. Is this any better now that it's warmed up and running? Here we go. Do this very gradually. It's got power, I can hear it buzzing and it's starting to jerk. Okay, so it's pretty slow, but it's not yet smooth. Yeah. And you can't blame it for being this way because of those massive flywheels, of course. So yeah, it struggles with them at this speed. I think it's cut out. Oh, no, I turned it up and it recovered. So yeah, it's not a crawler. It's not a crawler. The performance is excellent, but not so much at the slow speeds. In reverse. Turning up. Turning up. Yeah, it's going. It looks as though it's going to crawl beautifully and then it jerks and then slows down to a slower crawl. So yeah, that's definitely not getting any better, is it? Maybe on DCC your mileage may vary, but here on analog we've seen Locos of this sort of weight that perform better than this. But yeah, otherwise performance is lovely, really, really lovely. So with that, let's test the couplings. I've set up a variety of box cars. I'm sure she'll handle these without any problems. So with that, let's back up, make sure the coupling works. Okay, I might try and glide into it. Ah, did I miss it? I bet I did. Yeah, all right, come on, that's fun. Let's try that again. Ready? Because it doesn't stop the moment you try and stop it. Okay, glide. That worked, I think. Did it couple though? Yeah, it did. All right, well, that's a good sign. Perfect coupling, first time. Very nice. Right, take it away then, the C420 with a bit of a train. Let's do this gradually. There we go. And we'll go for about, yeah, we'll go for about half power because it's not a fast Loco. I think that looks reasonably sensible. All right, so see which other diesels you can spot today. On the middle line, I've got my only other Atlas Loco, which is the GP40 in this very cool livery. It's not such a good runner, this one. I find that at 50% speed, it's very, very sluggish. And so, yeah, today's Loco is better than this, I would say. And that's just got a bit of a goods train. And then on the inside line, you'll have to bear with it a second because it's got sound. I'm running a Bachmann diesel. Now, what's this one? I think it's the GP7, is that right? It's been a couple of years since I looked at this one. But that's got some hoppers as well. Quite a nice Loco this as well with the sound. Anyway, let's catch up with the Century, see how she's getting on with the train. Alright, yeah, looking pretty lively actually at 50% speed. Any slowing down? Oh no. None. That is awesome. Do you know what? I've seen more detailed models than this. I've seen models that run slightly better than this. Possibly models with more features than this, but I don't think I've ever paid just £92 for one. Yeah, the value of this, and I've had this before with American Locos as well, the value is just astonishing. I wish that here in the UK, when you bought a Loco for £92, you would get something as good as this. Because here we've got the Hornby Railroad diesels, which are, you know, about £100 or so. but they're not as good as this. The detail is usually far, far simpler, and, well, the mechanisms, the least said about those, the better. They do have a cheaper full RRP, I suppose, but I've said this before, I know it. I just wish that we had a range of diesels or steam locos, any sort of model really, here in the UK with this kind of spec and this kind of price. Because here in the UK, models are either very, very good and expensive or very, very shoddy and cheap. There's not that many in the middle, and I think the middle ground is the ground I like the most. Those are the most enjoyable models for me. So yeah, British manufacturers, take note. I would love to see models of this spec produced for the UK market. I think that would be awesome. But anyway, yeah, a really lovely Loco. This looks great, runs well, and hauls beautifully. What more could you ask for? Let's have some ratings then for the Atlas C420. So the level of detail was, as I said earlier on, a lot better than I was expecting it to be. The paintwork was really, really good. There was quite a few separate parts as well, particularly around the ends. I think they looked very, very convincing. There's a lot of moulded grills on here. They're not etched or anything, but the quality of the moulding is excellent, which is great. We've also got pre-fitted figures. We've got lighting on board. Yeah, overall, it's a really impressive model. On the downside, there's no real cab detail except the figures, which is a pity. The moulding of the cast horns, yeah, they didn't look very real. And then, like I say, there is just the grills that are moulded on, not separately fitted. So for these reasons, I'm not giving it 5-star, but yeah, overall for the money, a very detailed model. Performance similarly is really good. I've given this 4-star. The amount of power in this Loco that's not really that big, you know, it's quite a small engine, but the amount of power is just crazy. Loads of torque, loads of weight to it. It can haul a decently long train without any problems. It just doesn't get 5-star because the crawl isn't the best. It's not that smooth, a little bit coggy, great at the high speeds, not so good at the low speeds. The pulling power though is insane, 0.74 newtons or about 42 coaches on straight and level track. That's more than a Bachmann Class 90 and way more than the GP40 by Atlas that I looked at last time. Amazingly powerful, more than you need. Yes, the Loco isn't as heavy as I thought it was to start with, but it's still more than heavy enough, I would say. Mechanism then, on the whole, I think is pretty good. I've given it 4-star. It does technically have all-wheel pickup. It does technically have brass bearings on its axles. Not a big fan of that design, and the way that the base keepers are all clipped together isn't the best. I prefer a more serviceable Loco. Would have been nice to have had some instructions to make body removal a little bit easier, but once you're inside, there's a high quality cast chassis, good quality 5-pole motor with dual flywheels, 2 DCC fitting options by the looks of it, with the 2 DCC sockets, and room for a speaker, although no pre-fitted speaker was included. So apart from the slight issues with the serviceability of the Loco, the quality of the mechanism is top-notch, really, really good. Quality then, again, I've given 4-star. Overall, this is a really good quality model. Most of the separate parts have been applied nicely and the decoration is top-notch. No issues with the paintwork that I saw. It's a very, very precise model. It doesn't get 5-star because the quality of the components in places aren't the best. I've already mentioned the horns, which didn't look very good. Also, the handrails are particularly flimsy. But otherwise, yeah, it's a well-built model, no major issue with the quality. Value for money then, so I think the RRP is about $185, something like that. Typically, you can pay $140 from the retailers. I paid $120 on sale as a discount, which is about £92. Well, that is just astonishing. I think the full RRPs are a little bit high for what is a basic model in some areas, but for £92, obviously you cannot fault this. So overall, a really good score actually, 8.40 out of 10, which is a grade of B. I mean, it's well deserved. It's nicely put together, it's well built. What can you say? So into the logbook it goes, where it is 3rd place, just below the Sterling single by Rapido, and above the Cavalex Class 60. Alright then folks, well that will just about do it for yet another review of an American diesel. And it's been a little while since I've done anything like this, and you know what? I've really enjoyed doing this again. So I'll see which other American Locos, not necessarily diesels, steamers as well, I can find, and if I can, I'll bring them to you. Also, if there's any other American locos that you know of that you think I might like, please feel free to comment about them down below, and that will at least give me a starting point. So any suggestions would be very, very welcome. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing this Loco. If you've got any thoughts on it, any experiences that you'd like to share about this Loco or similar, again, feel free to use the comment section to your heart's content. For now though, thank you once again for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Alright, cheers folks, you take care.